Welcome back, beautiful souls. I am so glad you're here. Today, we begin chapter 4 of Becoming Supernatural, and this one is especially powerful. It's titled Blessings of the Energy Centers, and in this chapter, Dr. Joe Dispenza teaches us how to intentionally work with the body's energy centers to elevate our health, intuition, and vibrational frequency. If that sounds like something you're into, this chapter is definitely for you. It's not just about healing our bodies, it's about awakening deeper states of consciousness and aligning your inner world with divine intelligence. This is what I truly believe Christ was here to teach us. He was trying to teach us how to align our inner world with divine intelligence. And then it became a religion. Anyways, in this first part, we are simply being introduced to the idea that we can tune into our energy centers, what many people call chakras, to access transformation at a biological, energetic, and spiritual level. As I read, let this be an invitation to become more aware of the intelligence flowing through your body right now. Let's begin. Let's see where I see this. Blessings of the energy centers. We've been talking a lot about light and information, or energy and consciousness. Now it's time to go a little deeper in those concepts to help explain how the next meditation works. As you already understand, everything in our known universe is made up of or emits either light and information or energy and consciousness, which are other ways of describing electromagnetic energy. In fact, these elements are so intimately combined that it's impossible to separate them. Look around you. Even if you don't see anything other than matter, objects, things, people, or places, there's also a sea of infinite invisible frequencies that are carrying encoded information. That means not only that our body is made up of light and information, of energy and consciousness, but also that you, as a conscious being with a body, are made up of gravitationally organized, light packed with information that is continuously sending and receiving various frequencies, all carrying different signals, just like a radio or a cell phone. This just reminded me of like The Secret when he talked about Bob Proctor talked about electricity and how we don't understand it, but we know it's real. Just like Wi-Fi, you can't see it, but you know it's a real thing because you need it, right? We need it to even be me for me to be doing this. All frequency, of course, carries information. Think about radio waves for a moment. There are radio waves moving through the room you're sitting in right now. Just talked about that. If you turned on a radio, you can tune it to a specific wavelength or signal, and then a little transducer in the radio would pick up that signal and turn it into sound that you could hear and understand as your favorite song, the news, or even a commercial. Because you can't see the radio waves in the air doesn't mean they aren't there, carrying distinct information on a specific frequency all the time. If you change the frequency a small degree and tune it into another station, a different message will be carried on that wavelength. Take a look at figure 4.1a, which shows the entire light spectrum and demonstrates all the electromagnetic frequencies that we know of. The visible light spectrum, where we perceive the various array of colors present in this world we live in, present in this world we live in, makes up less than 1% of all the frequencies of light that exist. So basically, all the light that we see, that we're able to process with our eyes, that's only less than 1% of all the frequencies of light that exist. Like, we can't see electricity, we can't see radio waves, we can't see Wi Fi, but they exist. But the only light we see that we're able to see is less than 1%. That's crazy. I had to say that to make sure I understood it, by the way. That means that the majority of frequencies are beyond our perception, and therefore, most of our known reality in this universe cannot be experienced by our senses. So, aside from our ability to perceive light being absorbed or reflected off of objects and things, the truth is that we are able to perceive only a very small spectrum of reality. There's a lot of other information available to us besides what we can see with our physical eyes. Remember that when I refer to light, I'm talking about all light, which includes the entire spectrum of electromagnetic frequencies, seen and unseen, and not just visible light. So here is that chart that he's talking about. Y'all know I'm terrible at showing y'all these charts, but screenshot it. Cool, cool. Oh, was that the right one? Hold on, I don't even know though. This is the one. Ugh, this one on this page. This page. Anyways, get the book, y'all. It's linked. It's linked below. He says, for example, even though we don't see X-rays, they still exist. We know this because we as human beings have the ability to create X-rays, and we can also measure them. In fact, an infinite number of frequencies exist within the spectrum of X-ray light. X-rays are faster frequency than the visible light we see and therefore have more energy because again, the faster a frequency is, the higher its energy. Matter by itself is the densest of frequencies because it's the slowest and the most condensed form of light and information. We are matter, by the way, and all physical objects are matter. And he says this is the most dense form of frequencies, and they're the slowest form of light. Did I say that right? It's the slowest and the most condensed form of light and information. Take a look at figure 4.1b, which I've already showed you. Rewind it. Move your eyes along the horizontal line running through the waves, hills, and valleys, starting at letter A, and then moving to B and then to C. Each time you arrive at the next letter, you have just traveled a full cycle, what is referred to as a wavelength. So the distance between letters A and B is one wavelength. The frequency of a wave refers to the number of wavelengths or cycles produced in 1 second, which is measured in hertz or Hz. Therefore, the faster the frequency of wave, the shorter the wavelength. The converse is also true. The slower the frequency, the longer the wavelength. I think we understand that. So when a frequency is really, really fast, it's going to go like this. When it's really slow, it's going to go like this. Right? Yeah, that's what he's talking about. And that's what the chart shows. For example, the light in the infrared frequency band has a slower frequency than the light in an ultraviolet light frequency band. So the wavelengths for infrared light are longer, and the wavelengths for ultraviolet light are shorter. Here's another example, this time from within the visible light spectrum. The color red has a slower frequency, 450 cycles per second, than the color blue, about 650 cycles per second. Therefore, the wavelength of red is longer than the wavelength of blue. And here he shows in figure 4.1c. Um, Throughout history, people have made several different attempts to photograph and measure fields of light. One prominent example is Kirlian photography, discovered in 1939 by Russian electrician and amateur inventor Seaman David, I can't even say it. I'm sorry, y'all. Davidovich Kirlian. Sorry. Which this unique, with this technique, Kirlian was able to capture images of the electromagnetic field that surrounds both living and non-living objects. He found that by putting a sheet of photographic film on a metal plate, placing an object on top of the film, and applying the high voltage current to the metal plate, an image of the electrical discharge between the object and the plate would show up on the film, appearing like a glowing silhouette of light around whatever was being photographed. In one of Kirlian's many experiments, he reportedly photographed two seemingly identical leaves, one from a healthy plant and one from a diseased plant. The photograph of the leaf from the healthy plant showed a strong light field, while the other showed a much weaker glow, leading Kirlian to believe that this photographic technique might be a means of assessing health. While scientists today debate the usefulness of Kirlian's photography as a diagnostic tool, research on the technique continues. A more recent development along these lines comes from German biologist Fritz Albert Popp, PhD, who has spent more than 3 decades studying biophotons, tiny intensity light particles that are stored within and emitted by all living things. In 1996, Popp founded the International Institute of Biophysics, IIB, a network of research laboratories from more than a dozen countries around the world that study biophotons. Pop and his fellow IIB researchers believe that the information contained in these light particles, which are stored in DNA, communicates extremely effectively with the cells of the organism, thus playing a vital role in regulating the organism's function. These biophotons can be detected by an extremely sensitive camera designed to measure their emissions. The stronger the emissions, as well as the more intense and coherent the light field, the greater the communication between cells and other healthier organisms. This is really cool. So basically, it sounds like he's trying to lead us up to the point where we can actually measure and see visibly what our body's light may contain, if I remember this correctly. In order to sustain life, and health, our cells communicate with each other by exchanging vital information transmitted on different frequencies of light. Pop discovered that the reverse is also true. When a cell does not emit enough organized and coherent electromagnetic energy, that cell becomes unhealthy. It's not able to share information with other cells very well. And without that exchange, it doesn't have what it needs. So the mechanistic version of the inner workings of that cell that we learned in high school biology is dated. In other words, that's old information. Old news. Charged molecules attracting and repelling each other are not responsible for the way cells work. Mm. Instead, the electromagnetic energy that the cell emits and receives is the life force that governs those molecules. That's what vitalistic view. That's a vitalistic view that supports the truth of who we are. What all this means, in effect, is that we are quite literally beings of light, each radiating a very vital life force and expressing an actual light field around our bodies, the totality of each cell expressing and contributing to the vital field of light that carries a message. It would be safe to say then that the more we define reality with our senses and live our lives as materialists, focusing primarily on the physical, and therefore, the more we turn on the stress response, the more we may be missing out on valuable information. That's because the more we keep narrowing our focus on matter, objects, things, people, and places in our outer world, the less able we are to sense those other frequencies that aren't visible to the naked eye. And if we're unaware of them, they do not exist to us. Remember in a previous chapter where he talked about physics, quantum physics, that it relied on the observer? So if you're not observing something or you don't have an awareness of something, technically it doesn't exist. So what he's saying is the other frequencies that we can't see or that we're not conscious of, to us, it doesn't mean they don't exist at all. It just means that we're not able to be aware of them. So they don't exist in terms of what we're able to perceive. You don't know what you don't know. Yeah. As you have already read and I hope begun to experience yourself with the meditation in the previous chapter, it's possible for you to tune into certain frequencies around you, just like you can tune into a radio dial to 107.3. When you close your eyes and sit and eliminate the external environment, the static that normally keeps you from sensing the other frequencies, you can train yourself to get a clear signal and receive information from it. When you do this repeatedly, you tune into a new level of light and information that you can use to influence or affect matter, including your body, including other people, including your reality. Mhm. And when you do that, your body experiences syntropy, which is enhanced order, instead of entropy, which is disorder, physical breakdown, and chaos. Once you can quiet down your analytical thinking mind and more readily tune into this more orderly information, your body automatically responds by processing this new stream of consciousness and energy, thereby becoming more efficient, coherent, and healthy. This is how people are healing themselves through these meditations. I'm actually going to stop this chapter, this part one right here, because that was just the beginning. And the next part, we'll explore how to access the subconscious mind and learn the difference between convergent and divergent focus so we can begin to shift from thinking to knowing. Stay with me and let's keep expanding together. See you in the next part.